This is a deep dive into one of the biggest global moves in trade policy right now, Donald Trump's newly announced trade tariffs and how they're already starting to impact the Australian car market. Feel free to skip ahead to the sections that interest you most, as we've added timestamps in the description below. We've also added a list of references, over 50 sources covering everything from VFACTS, car sales data, ABS trade stats, official tariff announcements, expert commentary, and market trends. So if you want to go deeper and check out all those links below, please do so. We want to give a highlight to a few key sources and thank them directly, like the ABC, SBS, and the Guardian Australia have done fantastic coverage of the response to the tariffs. We obviously leverage heavily the VFACTS monthly sales data, which is essential in understanding what's really happening and how the market is moving. And analysts from Bloomberg, Nikkei Asia, and the Pearson Institute for International Economics and their breakdowns on global trade policy. Trump's Liberation Day tariffs and what they really mean for Australia, and what kind of car you might or might not be able to buy in the next 18 months. So let's start with what actually happened. On April 2nd, Trump declared Liberation Day and slapped a universal 10% tariff on all goods imported to the US, even from allies like Australia. On top of that, there's a new 25% tariff on all imported vehicles and car parts, plus sector-specific tariffs on key commodities like steel and aluminium. Now, Australia doesn't export cars to the US, aside from like ultra niche markets, so we're not directly affected in that way. But what it does do is disrupt global car supply chains, especially those involving China, Japan, South Korea, and the EU, which are the exact regions where Australia gets most of its cars from. The trade war creates uncertainty, slows down shipping, increases costs, and puts pressure on international car makers to rethink how and where they manufacture. The short version is prices are likely to go up. Here's why. Tariffs make car parks and raw materials more expensive, especially aluminium, steel, semiconductors, and EV batteries. If production costs go up overseas, and they will, importers pass those costs onto us. And if all that sparks a broader economic slowdown, the Australian dollar could weaken, making imported vehicles even more expensive in Aussie dollars. We've already seen what happens when supply chains are disrupted. Remember the COVID-era chip shortages? People were waiting 6 to 12 months for a new car, and prices skyrocketed across all both new and used markets. Now, these new tariffs could have similar effects, only this time in its trade wars, not a pandemic driving the problem. According to VFACTS data on January and February 2025, here's who's selling the most cars in Australia right now. Toyota is king, selling over 37,000 vehicles in just 2 months. Mazda, Ford, Kia, and Mitsubishi round out the top 5. But here's where things start to get interesting. Chinese brands are starting to surge. MG sold 7,479 cars, motor vehicles 7,186, BYD 3,956, and Chery 3,875. Now that's huge. MG outsold Subaru, Great Wall beat Nissan, and BYD sold more than Mercedes-Benz. Here's the thing, there are even more Chinese brands quietly entering the Australian market. We recently reviewed the Deepal S07, a compact SUV from a manufacturer I'll be honest, I didn't really even know existed until recently. It's a part of a growing wave of new players offering affordable tech pack EVs and hybrids. You can check out that video here if you want to see what Deepal is bringing to the table. So what's happening here? Chinese brands are gaining serious traction in Australia, and Trump's tariff could actually help them even more by pushing Western competitors into a corner and giving these new brands more space to grow. Here's the twist. The US tariffs are aimed at slowing down Chinese exports into the States, but all that inventory still needs to go somewhere, and guess where it's heading? Australia. We're one of the few developed countries with no extra tariffs on Chinese cars. That makes us a prime target for brands like BYD, MG, and Chery, who are now shipping even more vehicles here. And to add to the fact that they're offering tech pack EVs for under 40 grand, it's easy to see why more Aussies are taking notice. Expect to see more Chinese cars on the road and possibly cheaper prices, even as traditional brands go up. So what happens if new car prices go up or wait times blow out again? People turn to the used market. During COVID, used car prices in Australia went nuts, up about 50% at their peak. Prices have come down there since, but they're still about 20% higher than the pre-pandemic prices. If Trump's tariffs make new cars more expensive again, we could see used car prices jump once more, especially for in-demand models like dual cabs, hybrids, or small SUVs. For buyers, that means less value for money, For sellers, it could be a good time to trade in or sell. Now let's talk supply chain. Australia doesn't build cars anymore. They import everything. And most of the new vehicles come from Japan, which is 379,000 in 2024. Thailand, 272,000. China, over 200K. And South Korea, over 158K. That's a million cars from Asia. Now, with the US turning inward and Europe caught in the crosshairs, we're likely to get even more vehicles from our own region, especially Thailand, Indonesia, and China, where car makers are now building on expanding factories. Think BYD in Thailand, Great Wall setting up shop in Malaysia. These moves help automakers dodge US tariffs and make Australia a bigger priority market. European brands like BMW, Audi, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen already face a 5% import tariff here in Australia since there's no FTA with the EU. If the US-EU trade friction worsens or European factories prioritize their own local markets over exports, we could see longer wait times and higher prices for those brands in Australia. That could push more luxury buyers towards alternatives like Genesis. We've also done some recent reviews on their cars, which we'll link to the description below and give you a link here. Or even high-end Chinese EVs, which are coming soon with premium features like competitive pricing. So what does this all mean for Aussie car buyers in 25 and 26? Here's what we think we'll see. More price-conscious buying. People will cross-shop more, chase value, and ditch brand loyalty if the price is right. More interest in Chinese and Southeast Asian-made vehicles. They'll be cheaper, available, and well-equipped. Used cars staying hot, especially for people who can't justify 50K for a new car when a 35K new one does the job. Shifting preference towards EVs, but only if they stay cheap. If Chinese EVs keep undercutting the European options, more Aussies will keep making that leap. Fewer impulse buys. People will hold onto cars longer or downsize their expectations, maybe opting for a compact SUV instead of a full-size one or skipping the luxury brand altogether. All right, before we wrap up, let's look ahead because what's coming could reshape the car market all over again. Here's what to watch in the next 12 months. More Chinese brands entering Australia. We're already seeing big moves from BYD, MG, GWM, and Chery, but others like Deepal, Zeekr, Neo, and Xpeng are lining up. These companies are bringing seriously competitive electric vehicles, not just budget options, but premium EVs at the mid-market prices. A potential EV price war as the US and EU lock Chinese cars out with steep tariffs, including the US quadrupling the tax on Chinese EVs. Australia could become a battleground for EV pricing. If brands like BYD and Deepal flood the local market, legacy automakers may be forced to cut prices or pack in more values just to keep up. The effect of Australia's new emission standards. From 2025, stricter emission rules are being phased in here, and that means that car makers will have to clean up their fleet or pay a penalty. That could push up prices for less efficient petrol utes and SUVs, and again, make hybrids and EVs even more attractive. Exchange rates and economic uncertainty. If the global economy takes a hit from trade wars or slowing demand, the Aussie dollar weakens. Expect import prices to rise across the board. That'll hit not just new car prices, but also parts and servicing costs. Government incentives shifting. We've already seen the fringe benefit tax exemption for EVs end in April 2025, which caused a spike in sales beforehand. But now that that's gone, it'll be interesting to see whether the government introduces new incentives, especially if they want to keep the EV adoption growing. In short, 2025 and 2026 are shaping up to be a wild ride for the car industry in Australia. Prices, supplier and buyer habits, everything's in a flux. So whether you're planning to buy, sell, or just watch the market, it's time to stay well informed. And hey, if anything big breaks, we'll be sure to cover it here. While Trump's tariffs might seem like a US issue, the fallout is global. And in Australia, where we import every single car, we're right in the middle of it all. We could see prices rise, used cars hold strong, and further shifts in brands we trust and the ones that we buy. If you're in the market for a new car in 25, 26, keep an eye out from where it's made, how the global economy is tracking, and whether new players are offering better deals than the old favorites. This is a time of change, but potentially also opportunity. Thanks again for watching. If you found this useful, please hit like and subscribe. We've got more breakdowns coming soon on the biggest changes in cars, transport, and culture from around the world, but particularly in Australia. Catch you on the next one.